Kia ora tātou. Like Nader, I'm a mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and I consider those roles to be my greatest achievements. I'm also the principal of Aroha College in Otara, where I'm privileged to have another 350 young people refer to me as Nanny Ann, among many other names, I'm absolutely sure. So thank you for the invitation to be here today. Kathy will tell you that when she first spoke to me about this, I questioned whether I was the right person for the job. When I looked at the theme, I questioned my own positioning in accepting the invitation to speak, particularly on the topic of the role of schools in creating change for Māori Farno, when I consider schooling to be one of the most powerful tools of colonisation, complicit in the creation of the very vulnerability, and I don't like that word either, that we're discussing today, and a major roadblock in the pathway forward. So I asked myself, what can I, as a Pākehā educator, have to say that's relevant to an audience who need no convincing that our schools have failed and continue to fail our Māori learners? I strongly believe that my role as a Pākehā school leader and researcher investigating Māori and Pasifika education settings is to use the research to inform other Pākehā school leaders and teachers who have the education of Māori children in their hands in what I call our white stream schools, to raise our own individual and collective awareness of the issues, and so my job is usually to poke big holes in the comfort zones of white policy and decision makers. However, if we're going to talk about building pathways together to the future, we have to each be honest about the roles we play. And the fact is that although our education system likes to paint a picture of us all being involved in the same struggle, we all know that struggle is far from equal. So I hope that what I have to say about our system and some of the solutions we've developed in Aroha College will resonate with today's kaupapa. I was asked to speak about the role of the school in creating change for whānau and their children. For me, that means schools identifying the barriers they create that allow them to avoid change and that prevent Māori children from reaching their potential as Māori. So that's where my title comes from. You'll have noticed by now that I've brought with me some of our awesome staff and 4 of our fabulous students who are in years 10, 11 and 12. These 4 students are co-authoring a paper with me, which we will present at the American Education Research Association conference in Vancouver next April. The paper and the students' research is about the effect of organising and structuring a school as a whānau from their perspective as rangatahi. So what they're learning from everyone here today is invaluable for their research, but they don't get let out of school for a whole day that easily, so I'm also going to put them to work. In 2010, a group of senior students worked together to develop a set of critical messages based on the definite dozen, a set of 12 principles introduced to our students by widely acknowledged social justice educator, Dr. Jeff Duncan Andrade. Te ara tino rangatiratanga, the pathway to self-determination, is the result of our senior students' thinking. Duncan Andrade explains that the idea is not about the principles themselves per se, but about the importance of creating scaffolding tools for young people that they can draw on in other situations and in their future lives. Te ara, then, as our students call it, is many things: a rite of passage, a common language, a set of principles, or a creed to live by. Every day in Te Whānau o Tupuranga, all of our students from year 7 to year 13 say this as our morning karakia together. And I'm going to ask our students to introduce themselves, then say, Te ara tino rangatiratanga, then I want to use this set of principles as the framework for the rest of my talk today. Go.
Kia ora, ko Elizabeth katoa ko whenua, ko ngāpui me tuho I Ngāiwi, kia ora.
Kia ora, ko kohanga tōku ingoa, heuri tēnei no ngāpuhi kaitahu data ko Harua. Kia ora.
Kia ora, ko Pākiu tōku ingoa, ko Ngāti Whātoa, no ko Whakatoa. Opi, kia ora.
Mahurehure, hoku ngā ko waiwhanua ngonga, te ko hamiha sini tōku.
I've swapped the order on them, so they might need to check.
Our pathway to self-determination, ōwaki, conscientisation, becoming aware. Ki te rawhina e tahi atu arotahi ki au I te tūtahi. In order to help others, we need to help ourselves. Ko au, ko koe, ko au. I am you, you are me. Kia atu hei Māori tūturu. I can't experience success in anything else until I experience success of being Māori. Waiho Māori tangata kei rei mihi. Let someone else acknowledge your virtues. Be humble. Tū motuhake, resistance, say no more. E hara takitua I te tuatakitahi, engari e tuatakituni. Our unity is our strength. Whakapono, believe we can make a change. Mahia apunia e arai ngā wākatoa. Work and study every day, everywhere. Mahurehure, never ever give up. Te whiripara, transformation. Whakamea te kunama karama. Acknowledge the knowledge, teach and be teachable. Me whakawete ki a mahia. Be self-critical. Haere te kapirangi ki te tōhu koe mehe mana teite. Have the highest expectation of yourself. Haere wātu ngā mea katoa. Aim for the very best in all things. Haruia te kapuno kei ngā ramatuhi kia te puai mahua whai ki ngā tūrama. We are the leaders of the future.
Kia ora. So every day, and it should stick. The framework follows Graham Smith's continuous cycle of conscientisation, resistance and transformation, as our students felt. That aptly describes the journey they and their whānau have been on in the restructuring of the school. And I want to briefly background that journey first. So Clover Park Middle School had a long history of listening to its community. In 1990, pressure from Māori parents in the then Māori bilingual unit drove a change from intermediate to middle school status. In 2001, a demand from the parents of Māori students again, who had gone off to various senior secondary schools and then dropped out, caused us to enter into a 5-year battle with the Ministry of Education to enable our older Māori students to remain in the wraparound Farno learning environment they told us suited them best. Te Farno o Tupuranga opened as a designated character bilingual Year 7 to 13 secondary school in 2006. And towards the end of 2008, we finally moved into our new school buildings, purpose-built for the way we learn. No walls, no doors, no front of the room, just flexible learning spaces based on Māori and Pasifika ways of learning and engaging. But there was no rest space this time. A delegation of Samoan, Tongan and Cook Island Māori parents had already asked us to find ways to keep their children learning bilingually through to the end of their schooling. We had expected this, but the Ministry of Education hadn't, and so we embarked on another struggle to simply extend Clover Park Middle School to senior year levels. This third fight included rejections from 2 successive Ministers of Education and a change of strategy on our part until we finally won approval to merge the 2 schools to become Ara Whakamua College in January this year, with a designated character focused on bilingual, critically conscious, culturally responsive, social justice education. Over the last 21 years, there have only been 6 years when we've not been involved in a fight with the Ministry of Education. And for 15 years, over 3 different and sustained battles, we've refused to back down, no matter what obstacles officials put in our way, and there were lots. So that's commitment. It's also community and authentic engagement. And the reason why we've managed to achieve what we have is simply because we listened the first time. And the community was empowered by that experience. When they asked us to bring back senior students and we said we thought that would be an impossible task, they quite rightly told us in no uncertain terms that we'd done it before. It's also aroha. Manulani Maya speaks of the intelligence of aloha, and this is our version, obviously. So choosing the name Ki Aroha for our newly merged school signals strongly what we believe about education. This notion of authentic, deep caring is crucial if we want to engage our Farno in our schools. The ultimate question for any principal or any teacher, I think, is would you put your own child in that teacher's class, or in your own class, or in your school? In Ara Whakamua College, we use Lisa Delpit's term that these are our kids, not other people's children. And that changes the way we think about schools and children. So back to our framework. The radical change I don't need to tell you about that occurred in respect of Māori education and schooling in the 1980s developed out of Māori communities who were so concerned with the loss of language, knowledge and culture, they took matters into their own hands and over time set up highly successful learning institutions, Kohanga Reo, Kura Kaupapa Māori and Wānanga. The establishment of schools like Ara Whakamua College within the white stream is a further community-driven model that is a consequence of the conscientisation of a people and a community. Graham Smith says that the real revolution of the 1980s was a shift in mindset, a move away from talking simplistically about decolonisation, which puts the coloniser at the centre of attention, to talking about conscientisation or consciousness raising, which puts Māori at the centre. In the early 1990s, following the establishment of Te Whānau Tukuranga as a Māori bilingual unit within Clover Park School, we soon realised that simply changing the language of instruction didn't help make the school a better fit for Māori learners, and we began to explore the reasons why. Schooling had been a negative experience for Māori whānau for generations, and how could we expect to reconnect Māori parents and grandparents with their children's learning? And these first 4 principles signalled a return to authentic Māori values. And as Graham again explains, the changes we needed to make were shifts in thinking, being proactive rather than reactive, and raising the community's awareness and consciousness. So in our school, our work's underpinned by this very simple premise. If we look at a child's colouring book before it has any colour added to it, we think of the page as blank. It's actually not blank, it's white. And that white background is just there and we don't think much about it. Not only is the background uniformly white, the lines are already there and they dictate where the colour is allowed to go. When our kids are small, they don't care where they put the colours. But as they get older, they colour in more and more carefully. They learn about the place of colour and the importance of staying within those predetermined boundaries and expectations. And that's what happens in our white stream schools. That white background is the norm. When schools talk about multiculturalism and diversity, what we're really referring to is the colour of the children, or their difference from that white norm. It's really about how they don't fit perfectly inside our lines. If the colour of the space doesn't change, we're still in the business of assimilation, relegating non-white children to the margins, no matter how many school reform initiatives, new curricula, strategic plans, or national standards, thank you, Leonie, we dream up. What we're trying to do is change the colour of the space, so that space fits our children and they don't have to constantly adjust to fit in. It's not rocket science. When we restructured the school as a whānau, we had to explore the significant disconnect between what happens in whānau and what happens at home, in school. In your whānau at home, the adults don't change every year, usually, and members of a family across generations work together, not in separated age levels. When whānau members make a mistake, you don't usually suspend them from the whānau. And sometimes you might want to. And our thinking about those realities led to multi-levelled classes, teachers remaining with the same students for 3 to 4 or more years, no bells, no running around different teachers, siblings, cousins, all whānau members placed together in the same classes, a policy of inclusion and not suspending or withdrawing students from class. The importance of these concepts is very evident in the voices of students in research carried out by the Families Commission, published earlier this year. Huia O'Sullivan, a Māori engagement advisor, spent almost 2 years just hanging out in our school. Student voices in her research have been written as a poem, and in this excerpt, students told her, we're about whānau. Whether it's your whānau kura, your whānau at home, your up north whānau, or the whānau you've never met, when you're together, that's whānau. That's the connection. At Tupuranga, we're treated like people. This kura is our haven. Here we feel safe. I leave my house, walk down the road, and I'm home again. That's achievement as far as I'm concerned. So placing whānau and culture at the centre of curriculum meant changing to a curriculum that is integrated not just across subjects but with students' lives and realities. Learning that's based in the type of in-depth action research the young people you've seen today are involved in, learning through a critical social justice lens. The expectations for our graduating students are spelled out in our graduate profile. The expectations that are developed in this stage of the framework are that students will have a confirmed future learning pathway, high academic achievement, which includes NCEA Level 3 and university entrance, will be role models, articulate speakers, have a respect for knowledge in all its forms, be conscientised to inequities and injustice in education and the wider society. They'll understand they have the absolute right to learn at school as Māori, without compromising their cultural identity. They'll also understand and model values such as whakaiti, reciprocity and whānau. And these values are further developed in the second stage of Te Ara. So the resistance of Te Whānau Tupuranga in Clover Park and Karoha College to dominant ideologies of school practice and reform has been one of trial and exploration over many years. It required commitment and hard work from the Board of Trustees, school leadership, staff, students and whānau. These 4 principles have been essential to this process of making and then sustaining change. Duncan Andrade and Morrell identified 3 goals of critical pedagogy as empowered identity development, academic achievement and action for social change. We believed we could make a change and we did, developing a strong academic identity and high academic achievement, but we also realised that a single focus on that ignores or even negates the other 2 goals couldn't possibly be success or excellence in our book. So in our power lenses model, we call it power because it's about empowerment, and lenses because we have to look at learning differently. Empowered identity development, you can't see the colours very well, is the goal of the self-learning lens. The lens that includes the rich resources children learn at home about whānau, language, cultural norms and identity, about being Māori and learning as Māori. Academic achievement is the goal of our school learning lens, everything we have to teach that's in the national curriculum, except national standards. Action for Social Change is supported by the skills and tools provided to students through our global learning lens. The toolkit that equips our youth for the world beyond school. On our campus, that includes an after-school computer clubhouse and a free community wireless network that reaches the home and family of every student. Our model has these 6 crucial positive relationships and critical social justice learning at the centre. Put all that together and it looks like this. That's our curriculum. The focus is on learning as a whānau. Older and younger students and teachers work and learn together and are responsible for each other throughout the school day. And in this resistance cycle, we've also fundamentally questioned and resisted the whole field of assessment and evaluation and its limited focus on technical achievement determined by white knowledge and white ways of knowing. We've challenged our national blinkered pursuit of literacy and numeracy as the primary indicator of success in school and the sole aim of all of our solutions to the inequity of outcomes for Māori learners. I mean, we can label anything Māori. As this photo taken in Hawaii of the Māori snack shop menu shows. And that's exactly what we do in education when we talk about Māori achievement. So we are really clear that being able to put a reading result alongside a Māori child's name, or showing that Māori children are meeting or exceeding national norms or standards in reading or writing or maths, or being able to analyse these data and make comparisons with other ethnic groups doesn't make it Māori achievement. It's just reading or writing or maths. There's nothing Māori about it. Similarly, reducing Māori or Pasifika students' truancy or suspensions or any other interventions which start from a position of deficit may signal a school's achievement in changing its practice, but it's not any measure of our children's success. If achievement as Māori is exactly the same as achievement as Pākehā, there seems little point in the stated intent of ka hikitia. If we use no indicators of Māori knowledge whatsoever, and we define Māori achievement in Pākehā terms, which we determine for our Māori learners, how can that possibly be achievement as Māori? So these questions in 2007 led us to develop a 2-year action research project based on Mason Jury's 4 key markers for Māori cultural identity. And using the indicators that we developed, we can now show our children's progress in that self-learning identity lens and can show very high Māori and Pasifika achievement that's based on cultural knowledge and competencies. And we can also show academic achievement that exceeds national norms. We didn't get those literacy and numeracy results which exceed decile 10 schools by focusing on literacy and numeracy. We got them by focusing on being Māori and Samoan and Tongan. So we're very clear that learning in the self-identity lens is legitimate, high-status, end-point learning in its own right. It's not some stepping stone to better literacy in English. The intent of the lens is to develop Māori and Pasifika knowledge. It's an intentional counter-hegemonic choice. We believe that a single goal of academic achievement without knowledge as Māori demeans our Māori learners who deserve better. The minute we define our students' success in those terms, we negate all the other learning we think is just as important. So these 4 principles, the last 4 principles, encourage our young people to have the highest expectations of themselves, to be prepared for learning in all its forms, to be self-reflective, and to understand the responsibility to pass knowledge on to others. The ultimate goal of Kia Aroha College is to develop warrior scholars, young people with high academic skills, secure, empowered identity as Māori, as comfortable and competent on the marae and in Māori settings as they are in the classroom, with all the tools they need to challenge and change inequity in their whānau, their communities, and in the wider world. This third stage is about action for social change and the further development of critical thinking. It prepares our young people for the worlds beyond school and home, with 21st century skills and knowledge which gives them the kete they need in order to go out and change the world. This toolkit includes advanced computer information technology and critical media literacy skills. Warrior scholars are definitely not vulnerable children. They are self-determining and always transforming. They are informed advocates for social change, critical thinkers, activists for social change, and are competent in all three of our power lenses. Ontuiakom argues that all spaces are politicised, racialised and gendered insofar as they are infused with questions of power and privilege. He uses the concept of free spaces as an important site for the development of theory and practice around youth activism, teacher development, and the transformation of public and private space in urban schools and communities. He defines free spaces as places that share some of these characteristics: shared bonds, places to revive one's culture, rejuvenate our spirits, participatory democratic spaces, places to civically engage, debate, dialogue, to form social networks, to educationally achieve, form democratic and revolutionary visions of social change. And the job of schools and whānau working together should be to create such free, democratic, revolutionary and Māori spaces. The resources to challenge and change every school community in this way exist in the community itself. The experience of the schools on our campus has proven that it's possible, in spite of all the opposition, which shouldn't be so difficult, to give our children the educational sovereignty that should rightly be theirs. There's no single easy solution. The achievements of our community have been the result of long years of extremely hard work on the part of everyone involved. There's no miracle recipe that can be picked up and placed in another community or school. Each community is different, and each school needs to work to remove their own barriers and to develop relationships of trust and reciprocity with their whānau and students. There are, however, lessons to be learned by schools and communities in the experiences of our three schools. And our research identifies 7 key principles that our work has in common with 3 highly effective critical social justice programs in the States. And I'm going to just run through these really quickly because we're going to run out of time. But these principles are crucial to the success of our Māori and Pasifika learners. So what's the role of schools in creating change for whānau and their children? There are 2 sides to answering that question, I believe, which are dependent on each other for real change and pathways for the future. Whānau need to stop simply settling for white stream schools to get better at providing the same old stuff and demand much more and not give up. Mahurehure School, currently mounting fierce community opposition to a decision from the Minister of Education to close their successful senior class, whose students incidentally are currently on our roll at Kia Roha College, is a perfect example of whānau demanding their right to an education that fits. That's both conscientisation and resistance in practice. Second, schools need to get honest about the fact that our education system is predicated on an arrogant assumption of white privilege that dominates what counts as knowledge and achievement, and which alienates our Māori and Pasifika children and their whānau, and all of our solutions to the inequity which we create and then daily perpetuate are based on fixing the problem. It's what Dave Stovall calls giving those poor people of colour what they so desperately need. That thinking has to stop in our schools. Finally, Indian philosopher Krishnamurti said, "It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And it's no measure of a successful pathway to a vibrant future to have managed to adjust our Māori kids to fit into the profoundly damaging white spaces in our schooling system." Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Kia ora tātou.